Everywhere you look, you can find a story to be told.
Could this be a fairy tale finish? Over 1,000 Ellsworth fans here, everyone surrounding the Cinderella.
If you explore the lower corner of Minnesota, you'll come across a town that'll be very easy to miss.
Last 2.5 minutes of the ball game, the Panthers turned the tide. We thought this game was over, but this is a new Ellsworth team.
Ellsworth has a legacy of high school boys basketball that will go down in history. The mark it made in high school basketball in the 2000s is one that any Panther would be proud of.
What are you going to remember about this championship?
My great teammates hanging out at the hotel, playing on the Target Center. I mean, I love every guy in that locker room, and there's nothing better than a state championship to end it.
I get that feeling every March. Spring and basketball. Something about the madness. A new Cinderella will show up and make their own history. But every time a new bracket's filled in, I remember the run of the Ellsworth Panthers. Ellsworth. Don't blink. You might miss it. There she is in all her glory, hugging the Iowa border. Ellsworth's about 5 blocks by a mile long. A humble town with hard-working folk. On a road not too traveled. A tiny town with a big heart. I always wanted to tell a basketball story, one I knew from up close, for those who lived it, but also to relive it, to bring it out from the newspaper clippings to your heart. We started telling stories, reminiscing on positive memories. It felt like the time to turn the camera on and find the old tapes.
This has got to be one of the best high school games I've ever seen. 2 for 3, another one. Unbelievable, absolutely unconscious.
An underdog story that inspired a small town to large aspirations. A legacy that unified a town in support of a single goal. Come with us as we discover what it means to have pride in your hometown. Welcome to Hometown Pride.
Could this be a fairy tale finish? Over 1,000 Ellsworth fans here.
We thought this game was over, but this is a new Ellsworth team.
1999, Ellsworth was nobody.
So you're off to a great start. So you guys thinking maybe state championship?
We don't care about the stats. We play as a team, we want to win.
If there was ever a team hungry to get back here, it's Ellsworth.
He made the shot. It's history.
For the 3! Yes, sir! Ellsworth has won the state title! There's the entire city of Ellsworth and then some.
Ellsworth, a little gem in the middle of nowhere. Most people don't pass through. It's not really on the way to anything.
Amarillo by morning.
It's just there, a cozy little town in southwest Minnesota. Back in its heyday, there used to be a railroad that ran through it.
Is just what I've got on.
It once boasted a booming 650 people. Its pride and joy was the Red Roof. People from all around the area would come for a good old-fashioned hoedown.
Amarillo by morning. Amarillo, I'll be there.
Back in the day when we were growing up, everybody knew Ellsworth for the Red Roof. You'd know, hey, Strutter's coming to town, Johnny Home is coming to town. Everybody knew when there was a big dance. And if you go back generation before that, they went to the old Red Roof. And they have some amazing stories to talk about dances and wedding dances. The old Red Roof was kind of an iconic thing. A lot of fights happened because of the Red Roof though too. It was a dance hall and kids from all different towns came there and didn't always behave.
Population probably almost doubled on big nights. My grandpa and grandma remembered Red Roof. They were there. They did their square dancing, their waltzing. To my dad and mom, they were there. That's where they met up with friends. It was a great community place. People can say a lot about small town life, but I don't know that I'd ever have it any other way. Worst of times people come together, best of times people come together.
But Lord, I'm free.
When the street lights came on, that's when you went home.
Corn and beans as far as the eye can see. Your average, ordinary small town, with Midwest winds by day and a blanket of stars by night. Just outside of town, you'll find two signs. One says what you got. Those small towns cling to each number. And the other says what you did. You've probably seen them. The sign might also have one of your teams on it. Well, at least the furthest you've ever made it. Those teams defied the odds, defied the numbers. They're a testament for what big dreams can happen in a small town. They represent coming together, the glory days, when we did it.
I don't care what you think unless it's me that you're thinking about. I don't care what you think unless you think about me. I don't care what you think unless it's me that you're thinking about. I don't care what you think unless you think about me.
Let's take you back in time for a bit, for a ride to Ellsworth.
Nobody ever brought the excitement about basketball. At one time, the volleyball team did really well. That was probably my first year here. But as far as basketball was ever concerned, it was never really looked upon as a big deal. They played because they wanted to play and had fun.
When we were in 6th grade, we won the elementary Ellsworth basketball tournament. I mean, people were talking about that for weeks. 7th grade came along and we started going and playing some of these summer tournaments. The booster club would pay for those for us to get into it, so our parents wouldn't have to pay as much.
I don't care what you think unless you think about me.
I remember playing in 8th grade and there'd be maybe 25 fans in the stands. And then by the time my senior year's there, they're closing the doors at 6 o'clock for a 6:15 JV game because they're full.
It's crazy to think that when we were the smallest public school in Minnesota, we were doing a lot of these runs.
Optimistic, energetic, and alive instead, but then it turns.
I would tell people we had 17 in my grade, 17 boys, and we'd be like, no, 17 total kids. We have 9 boys, 3 of them don't even play basketball. People don't believe those kind of things. It's crazy to think that we did all these runs and being as small as we were.
You can't talk about Ellsworth without talking about the man behind the curtain, George Burnt.
Don't have words to say how blue I'm feeling.
George was behind the scenes and working for the good of the whole.
The world can lift you up, then lay you down.
He filled in the blanks. He was always just plugging along, just like his little car drove around the town.
When your lover's gone.
I'm George Burnt from Ellsworth, Minnesota. Taught here from '64 for 14 years. Became principal the rest of the time I was here. In the school system for 50 years.
Streets of this old city.
To show if you like to go to work or not, I never missed a day for my own sickness, ever, in 50 years.
This lonesome song.
I didn't have a clue where Ellsworth was. Got the map out and looked, and it was not too far from Sioux Falls, so I thought, well, this might be worthwhile looking into. And so I came over for an interview.
Oh, look at that.
I taught for 14 years, and it seemed like they were having trouble with principals. They'd stay 1 and 2 years, and they kept asking me, why don't you go to school and get your principal's degree? Well, I'm happy with teaching industrial arts. I like that area and stuff.
Why my nights are so long.
And then I started going back to school. Pretty soon I had my degree, and They asked me if I would give it a shot. I told them I would, and that's what happened after 14 years. But I was very happy teaching too.
When you're a man on your own.
He was the biggest fan. He was the most accommodating athletic director, principal. Every time I went there, he had everything ready for me. I think he was in his 70s when all this happened. He got on some of those fan buses and rode up and back to the Twin Cities 3 times on a weekend.
I don't think you could do this whole basketball deal without looking at George Burnt's face. When we weren't very good, he had a tough time getting games. I don't think anybody realizes how much of a scheduling headache that was when people didn't want to play us. And then once you get good, then all these people want to play you.
He loved to be involved in athletics, and he very was, and we'd always talk basketball and things in the morning, and he'd always get these little yellow post-it notes when he needed to meet with you. It always said, "See me, GB," and that was an indication that he needed to talk to you, you know what I mean? You could walk by him in the hallway, and he would never say, "Hey, I got to talk to you." And 2 minutes later, you walk into your mailbox, and there would be a yellow post-it note and just say, "See me, GB," and you bring that in, and that was his way of scheduling a meeting with you back in the day. Mm-hmm. I got a few of those too. Students.
Yep. Ellsworth was what it was because of Mr. Burnt. I truly believe that. His work ethic, his attitude, his demeanor, his stubbornness at times. He was the superintendent, principal, AD, bus driver, you name it, George Burnt did it.
I think he really appreciated what our team was doing for this school and doing for our town. He was very gracious to us, just a great person to have run this school for so many years.
As your names are read, would you please come forward and receive your medal. Presenting the awards will be George Burnt, principal of the Ellsworth High School. For your runner-up, Ellsworth Panthers. Sophomore, Kurt Stilling.
I think the best thing was, that was the only time I'd ever seen him choke up, was when, he's like, "I've waited a long time." It's like, yeah, you have. You've sat through a lot of ugly games before this got to be good. He was devoted.
Head coach for the Ellsworth Panthers, Ken Kvaale.
George, I remember, gave the trophy to us. I saw tears in his eyes when he gave us the trophy. George is a Marine, he's been in the Marines. I think it was tears of joy. I think he was just very happy for this team, for Ellsworth, for the whole town.
He wanted to do anything he could to see Ellsworth be successful in the classroom, on the basketball court, and he stepped up in so many different ways. There's things that you don't always necessarily want to do, and in the back of my mind, I sometimes think like, well, Mr. Burnt would have stepped up and done that. He always filled in when there was a need, and I'll appreciate that forever.
Every small town has its characters, people who embody what community means. People who represent the community in their actions, leadership, and beliefs. George Burnt was one of these characters. He isn't the type of guy who would even want this type of thing to be about him. With that humility, you can't tell this whole Ellsworth story without talking about the man who believed in Ellsworth achieving something great many years before. Someone who sacrificed his time and energy to allow something amazing to grow from just a seed of hope in the most unexpected place. As the AD, George was the gatekeeper of jerseys. Deep in the damp, dusty cellar of the old part of the school was the equipment room. It's where the maroon and gold jerseys hung with their splendor. Unlike many larger schools, a tryout was more like an invitation here at Ellsworth. He passed out jerseys like candy. Tryouts are usually a bit more interesting. Making the team is this nervous time where you gotta bring your best and know that you're gonna get placed somewhere. Small town basketball in Ellsworth was more about recruiting people to play. Principal George was just trying to fill his rosters. And as long as you showed up, one of those jersey numbers was yours. George was super generous with the jerseys. He was like Oprah with a car. You get a jersey, you get a jersey, you get a jersey. In a small town, you gotta do what it takes. And as long as you were breathing, you made the team. George was planting seeds and working behind the scenes to help Ellsworth have a shot. Little did he know, he was about to get a little busier. For a long time, he had to go to the competition, begging teams in the playoffs. But he will get a decade off.
I remember Ellsworth basketball back in the mid to late 70s and early 80s. Ellsworth basketball was not very good.
Day after day, I'm more confused.
We did all the section games. You would see Ellsworth every year. Usually it was one and done.
You know that's a game that I hate to lose.
Even through the mid-'80s, when I worked at another radio station, they still struggled.
See, there was a lot of smaller schools like Chandler, Lake Wilson, Magnolia, and Beaver-Creek. You participated all those schools in your area, so you had a chance to win some, lose some, and it was a lot more equal then. All the schools started closing, and then it got tougher and tougher because you were a smaller school and they had two teams against your one all the time. I thought we put enough of those kind of kids together, and if we get a coach that can handle them, that there is a possibility of winning a bunch of games.
Ellsworth won one game in 1999. There was a shortage of boys in the upper classes, so the young players got a lot of experience, but they weren't exactly winning.
Ken Kvaale, head coach of the Ellsworth Panthers from 1999 to 2005. I was in Wild Rose and I really liked it up there because I was born up that way. There was rumors that the school probably wouldn't make it too much longer. I wound up in a school in the Red River Valley, which was not a good experience for me. So I heard a couple openings coming up. George Burnt from Ellsworth had something in the paper.
Ken applied for this job, and we needed a social studies teacher and we needed a basketball coach. But he lived awful close to the Canadian border. Called him up on the phone, told him that I'm going to the races at Fargo. That'd be about halfway between us if you want to meet me there. When I went up there, I met with the Canadian friends of mine who are race fans, and he had a big $1 million motor home. He said, if you want to use it, go ahead for your interview.
He seemed very down to earth or down home. And I remember West Fargo Fairgrounds is quite a big place. And I remember driving through there and telling Carla that it went pretty well. And I just kind of wanted to drive by him one more time. Talking to the Lord, like, Lord, kind of shine a light kind of on the side of my head here so he can see an enlightened teacher / coach. And he seemed to kind of smile when I drove by. So I had a good feeling.
He had an offer between Ellsworth as well as 2 other communities in North Dakota, and we just thought, you know what, let's let's go check out Ellsworth. So that's how we ended up there. My dad always calls us Midwest gypsies. We're just all over the place.
I said, how's the team? Because he mentioned the coaching, and I remember we just sat at a small table with his little motorhome, and he goes, down the road might be a little better. Very vaguely, but I kind of had the feeling like it was going to be tough right away. Well, if it's going to be a fairly good team, maybe we'll be 500 or close to 500. You know, I had no idea it would be any kind of a state team.
Fall of 1999 is when we came. I was a freshman, Rachel was a sixth grader, and Travis was starting kindergarten. I was really excited. I wasn't someone who feared going to new schools because I had done it like 3 times. The only place that was really available to rent was a place a couple miles outside of town, actually in Iowa, and so we were going to go live on this farm.
It was an old rundown house out in the country right on the border, but I thank the Lord every day because I did not have a good year before I came to Ellsworth, and I was just so glad to be in the country. I'd never lived in the country before.
I still remember that day when we actually went out to meet the Kvaales for the first time. I remember thinking that this was awesome because, you know, we got a new guy coming in that was a year older than me, that he loves basketball, I love basketball. Let's really, you know, take this thing and run with it. We kind of hit it off that day, and it's just funny to look back at that and think of how it's just the start of something great that happened.
My dad says this, the town of Ellsworth saved the Kvaales too. When I lived in northwest North Dakota for 6 years, I had a great group of guys my age, and they were all about basketball just like I was. I mean, I was live, breathe, eat basketball. And then the town we moved to when I was in 8th grade, that we lived there for 1 year, basketball was not a big thing there. When we came to Ellsworth, I meet Kurt right away, and Brant and Travis and these guys. It was the best thing that ever happened to the Kvaale family, that's for sure.
It just seemed like almost like a southern version of Wild Rose where I was. When I came there, they had 11th and 12th graders together and stuff. So for a small school, I actually had an overload. I had 25, 30, 35 kids. So I did spend a lot of time preparing and stuff like that. I know there were some that thought that I was watching a movie every other day, but I think it was every third day that I watched a movie. Just thought I'd throw that in there for all you guys that like humor. Saving Private Ryan, best movie ever, no. I do honestly think I'm way too informal for a lot of schools because I'm mostly a musician, a basketball player, and a clown. That's my strong point, right?
I had a feeling that I belong. I had a feeling I could be someone, be someone, be someone.
My dad always says to this day, we feel like that's part of the reason why he got hired is because, you know, hey, we need a basketball coach, a basketball family, and obviously we need students, so they want to bring in families. Ellsworth didn't have a deep basketball culture at that time. The thing that was exciting to me was that I could tell there was a lot of guys my age and younger than me who were all about basketball. And so to me, it looked like the opportunity was there and that the future was bright and it's something I wanted to be a part of.
My first 2 years, I wish he would have been there for some of the success part of it, but Matt Den Hartog, and he was the one that's instrumental in really helping to develop Aaron and Cody and that crew that came up later. He took the junior high. He was a wonderful assistant. I just enjoyed working with him, and I always enjoyed Langland, who came in after that. Langland was about 6'6", and anytime in a huddle, I mean, you know, he was right there. I would see times even on videos where he'd be patting me on the shoulder. He gave me great, both those guys. I coached here 6 years, and you couldn't beat those guys as far as support and knowledge. I think a big thing was leadership. Our coach wanted leadership, and that's what I tried to groom there because I had to spend a lot of time, you know, preparing. So I appreciated my athletes, you know.
Ken's one of those guys you can't forget, a favorite in the halls of VHS. Ken might not have known it at the time, but his leadership helped inspire a generation of Ellsworth students, to achieve greatness. This move ignited a fire for the game in a town without a claim to fame. He taught his students how to enjoy learning, the importance of good films, and adding laughter to everything he did. One of his most important lessons was taking pride in what you do.
I thought Coach Kvaale was a great coach. I think he was always accommodating. He would love to sit down after games and talk. And I think he really kind of started that Ellsworth little dynasty that they had in the 2000s.
We're going to try to get Coach Ken Kvaale over here to talk. We're finally getting going to get probably one of the most popular guys over here tonight.
The guy that really loves to do this, right?
Well, you're getting good at this, Coach. Congratulations.
I'm eating this up.
Great job on rebounding, especially on the defensive board.
Yes.
You got in there and boxed out.
We got going. We didn't go away. The guys hung in there, and that's what they're paid to do. Oh no, you guys. That's what we love. He knows that's my humor.
Congratulations, and now good luck on Tuesday night.
You can't really tell the story of Ellsworth basketball. I think it starts with Ken Kvaale. I think it really does. I think he was kind of the coach when it started. You know, you can have great players, but sometimes if you don't have someone there with the X's and O's, you know, I think that part kind of, sometimes good teams can't really get to their, you know, true talent or true potential.
Behind the scenes, people don't realize what Mr. Kvaale did as far as the hard work he put into that team that went first. He worked hard to know what every team was going to do. He had every team broken down for each individual player, and I don't think people saw what he all put into it.
So my 8th grade year, my freshman year, Kvaale was a coach, and he was always kind of the prankster, kind of the jokester, tried to really keep things light, and I really enjoyed playing for Ken. And then when Ken stepped away, Okeson came in, I obviously still had Kvaale in the classroom. Anybody that went to Ellsworth, if you did not enjoy Mr. Kvaale's classrooms, then you were doing it wrong, because the guy would keep the mood light. He was a great teacher. You'd still learn all the materials, just like the life conversations that you would have in Mr. Kvaale's room. You wanted to be around him. His energy and his attitude and his heart, it drew people to him.
Under Coach Kvaale for a year, you know, I just never forget his sense of humor to everything. You know, it didn't matter what was going on, up 20, down 20, tight situations, he'd always keep that humor level going. Our players, because of that, kind of had that chill with them. So he did a great job with his environment, keeping that even keel, if you will. Never too high, never too low, just always kind of that same personality.
When he stepped away, what people forget is he went down to the junior high program and started helping develop players through the junior high. So I think not only our success, but even the success after us with like Travis Kvaale, Nick Nolte, Casey Schilling, like their success was a lot because Kvaale said, you know what, I'm gonna step down and really develop Ellsworth as a program. And a lot of people forget he was the junior high coach for a few years.
We learned a lot from Kvaale, you know, in my days of playing and stuff. And then obviously in history class, he'd be talking about the Wolves game the other night and stuff like that. And he'd be just, hey, did you see this player? Did you see that? You know, he was just such a great guy. And I think that's why so many people think he was their favorite teacher or favorite coach.
As you see Ken Kvaale, he's got the animation of a young player.
The guy's awesome. He's kind of random, like he keeps you on your toes, like always like one-liners, like talking about random stuff. We joke about it. It's an inside joke between Mr. Kvaale and I that we went 35-0 that year, and we were the best junior high team in the state. We actually lost one game to Laverne, but there was some controversy there, so we said we went 35-0 and won the junior high state tournament. He had me running point guard when I was in junior high. I truly believe that helped me later on in my career because I could actually handle the ball. I wasn't a big guy that was dribbling it off my toe.
You can never take the coach out of a guy like that. Kvaale, he's a basketball nut. He's like all of us. It was fun being able to play for him. A lot of really good memories on the basketball court with Mr. Kvaale, but then also in the classroom.
He's a great guy. He's a good teacher. He stops out here sometimes. He leaves me voicemails all the time, checking up on me.
Hello there, Trevor. Screens, that's what I like to do. I like to set good screens.
I like to set them in early in the game. I like to set them in the middle of the game, and even after the game, I like to practice good screens.
Super good guy. Obviously, I watched him coach the 03 team. Obviously, he knew what he was doing on that side of things too. He had some pretty good pieces to work with and kept you guys in line. So,
a lot of times I'll be driving in my car and I'll just say, "Thank you, Lord, for the open door." You know, George Burnt was a vessel. I look at Burnt like, "Thank you, Lord, for using Mr. Burnt as a vessel to open up the door to give me a chance to coach." And people are a vessel sometimes, whether they know it or not. You know, so anyway.
Winning is often caught more than taught. Ken was here to bring a winning culture based on his own history. He doubled the win total in his first year from 1 to 2, and then doubled again to 5. But his third season, the young Panthers were ready for a breakout. Somewhere in a no-name town, in what looks like no chance, with no pedigree, no history of doing it, no predictable kind of ways, someone practicing in a gym, believing in the impossible. We call it big dreams in a small town. That's what Ellsworth basketball is all about.
Number 23, Adam Sieff.
I forgot to introduce myself. I'll be your tour guide. Yeah, I was part of the run. On the court,
Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go.
Well, you saw Adam Sieff check in. Look at that heavily taped thumb. How does he play with that?
Question, but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end...
Look at that outfit. I almost bought that same thing for the game today.
He should be in the movie Urban Cowboy.
Ooh, I got a technical for getting too excited for my first dunk. I kind of accidentally put my feet on the backboard, and that is a See Me GB.
This is the first time I have personally ever given a See Me GB note to GB. So thanks for coming into my office for once.
You're sure welcome.
After my 8th grade year in the biggest city in South Dakota, we were moving to one of the smallest in Minnesota.
I hope you had the time of your life.
In the summer of '99, my mom said, "We're moving to Ellsworth." Where is that? I had no idea. My middle school had more people in it than in this whole community. But now, it's a place I'll never forget. This place helped shape me. Every small town has its go-to spots. To catch up, to cross paths. The bar, the main street, the local church, grocery store, gas station. Oh, and the gymnasium.
But in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life.
Our tin roof with brick walls, mixed with a few dead spots in the floor, made a home game an experience in Ellsworth. We were the bottom of the barrel in the state. How can you compete with schools with a booster and a budget and championship swagger?
Look at the stars, look how they shine for you.
But with a coach who'd won a state title before, we had a glimpse of winning.
Thank our athletes, grades 9, 10, 11, and 12 for their dedication and hard work night after night. I'd also like to thank my assistant coach Langland and of course all our dedicated fans. Thank you very much.
It was called yellow.
Every small town gym has a character of its own, a place with a little personality that's caught in an era somewhere along the way, and of course, filled with school spirit.
John Millay, sports writer, covering high school sports in Minnesota for the Minnesota State High School League. I'm in my 15th year, and before this I was a sports writer at the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. Covering pro sports, college sports, youth sports, then high school sports, which I loved. They hired me in 2010, and there's not a better job in the world. We have 30-some sports and activities with the high school league, and this is a hockey state. There's a lot more basketball teams than hockey teams. I hate to make hockey people upset. There's a lot of areas of Minnesota where hockey's not a thing. Basketball it's the hometown sport. You don't need 30 kids to play basketball. There's nothing like walking into a small town gym. It's a big night. It's a big rivalry game. There's nothing like that in the world. I've been in NBA arenas, NHL arenas. That's not better than walking into a small gym in a small town when everybody's revved up.
I remember walking into the gym and Dylan and Kurt were playing, and I remember being greeted with a bag of popcorn and a Diet Coke in the front row. The people of Ellsworth were fired up and excited that a college basketball coach was in their gym. It was a special time in Southwest Minnesota basketball and Northwest Iowa. There were diamonds in the rough around here, and no one really knew about it besides Northwestern for a stretch, and then Augie got involved and others got involved.
They would always save a couple seats for us. They were really good about having a spot for us to sit. I always thought that was a good sign. I figured the first time that spot's not there anymore, we ain't looking so good at getting these guys, so until the very end.
You know, early it was just me, you know what I mean? And then when you go and you would watch Cody play, and you know, then there was every NSIC coach there as well, and you're thinking, you know, I've got a relationship with the family, maybe I can still get in on this, you know, and all those things. But times have changed. Now, I walk in the gym now and everybody kind of expects the college coaches to be there, and there just was a real warmth and an excitement, and that's just a really sweet memory that I have of walking into that gym as we started this story.
When I walk through these doors, it brings back a lot of memories. It brings back a lot of good times, a few bad times, you know, some bad losses, but it's always a good feeling when you walk in the gym. There's a lot of great games, and obviously everybody remembers, but there was a lot of great games at open gyms and practices that I'll remember more than making state runs and stuff like that. You know, the relationships that you make with your friends and with the guys that you've, you know, grown up with your entire life, it's something that you'll never forget, and just the memories that we've made in this gym. I think I spent more time in this gym in my first 18 years of life than I think anywhere else in the world.
2010, I had this crazy idea that we should get a new gym floor. So I took it to Mr. Burnt. You can bring that to the school board and see what they say. And within a week to 10 days, I had $65,000 raised. You know, we had so many generous families and businesses throughout the entire area that just came forth and really made that thing happen. We ended up having a community night where we tore out the old gym floor. I bet there was probably 40 to 50 guys here that night that helped tear the floor out, and we got it all done in one night.
I said, are you gonna be my girl?
And we had skid loaders in here ripping it out, and farmers in here, people from town in here. We were part of everything that happened, not just the winning, but a part of building this gym, putting this floor in here, putting these bleachers in here, getting it repainted.
I had my wedding ring on when we started the project. That night, I noticed that my ring was gone. Just lost it from pulling out boards or what happened, but my first ever wedding ring is somewhere with the ashes from the EHS original gym floor in a hole somewhere. Never been found since.
So you're kind of married to this floor.
I am definitely married to this whole gym.
I said, are you gonna be my girl?
Kurt and Dylan and that whole crew kind of laid the foundation, and then success breeds success, you know, and tradition doesn't graduate. The baton just kept getting passed and didn't get dropped. I feel like that first group, they were the ones that set that tone so that all those guys could reap the benefits of the blood that was spilled prior to.
I don't know if it's the squeaky shoes, that commotion of the crowd, or that over-the-top buzzer sound. But it all takes you back, doesn't it? Something's in the air, calling out from that mediocre sound system. Winning just takes it all to another level.
What's up, y'all?
If you ask some of the first players about what kicked off the run, they might tell you about the last game of the year in 2000. It was Coach Kvaale's first season. Ellsworth was 1-20, and Mountain Lake Christian was about the same.
99-2000, we were actually pretty young. Even our older guys were several juniors on the team and several freshmen on the team, and even Kurt was in 8th grade at the time.
I developed early in life. I was probably 6'2" as an 8th grader. People ask me, I must have been a pretty good athlete playing as an 8th grader. No, I was 6'2" as an 8th grader, and there was really nobody that was as tall as me.
I didn't even suit varsity the first 2 games. Coach Kvaale kind of thought like, he's only an 8th grader. Is it necessary that he's on the team? He can just play JV. And then after the first tournament of the year, then he gave me a varsity uniform.
Early on, I started playing with Kurt when I was in 4th grade and he was in 3rd grade, and our dads coached us all the way through elementary. So just growing up with them, they were a lot more gifted than I was, and they worked at it. They deserved everything that they got going forward. So.
Turning point to that season, you could only play 5 quarters a night. Myself and a couple of the freshmen, Dylan, Brant, Travis, we would all play 2 quarters of JV, and then we would go and play 3 quarters of varsity.
But they stormed out to a 24-2 lead at the end of the first quarter. Something shifted.
Coach Kvaale at the third round, he said my B squad could do better than these guys could. And I said, well, put them in. He said, do I dare? And I said, well, if they're not doing the job, put them in.
Coach K decided to put in an 8th grader.
So he started putting him in one by one.
Kurt had already been building up to it. Like Kurt had come from not dressing to, okay, we're going to dress the 8th grader because he's killing in 8th grade and on JV. And so then Kurt comes in and gets like 8 points in 1 quarter. And then the next game he gets like 12 points. And the next game he gets 16 points. So those were the games leading up to it. So Kurt already had a presence at that time. But now it's like, well, why are we going anywhere besides Kurt?
Kurt Schilling was not your average 8th grader. This was his coming out party as he scored 21 points. He brought Ellsworth to a tie game with seconds left on the clock.
They tied it up down the stretch. We come down the floor and Dylan Kvaale gets a wide open 3. And we win and go absolutely crazy because I think that was our 2nd win of the season.
It was unbelievable. Everyone tackled me and it was a lot of fun, and the team we beat wasn't even very good at all. We were down 24-2 in the game, and our young core, we were a big reason for the comeback. So that was where we realized, like, holy cow, we weren't very good this year, but look out, like, we're coming.
Myself as an 8th grader had 21 points in the game. So I was just like, hey, maybe I've arrived, Little did I know that I wasn't even close to where I needed to be, but you just think, as an 8th grader winning a varsity game like that and having a big impact, you think that something is, going on there.
And everybody in there is like what just happened? What just happened? How did things just change? Mountain Lake Christian after the game says, we probably won't schedule you guys again with what you have coming up. And for the first time ever, we've got somebody saying, we won't schedule you because you guys are looking like there may be some light shining there.
I'd say about halfway through the second year, I could see that might be a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel.
When Coach Kvaale showed up, I didn't have any clue of how to know what he was as a coach. He was coaching us when I was an 8th grader and 9th grader. We were terrible. There's only so much you can do as a coach sometimes.
I do remember the game in Edgerton was good in those days, believe it or not. They beat us, and Kurt had 8 points, and I saw something there. Because I thought, geez, I got a bunch of guys here that all they know how to can score is 4 or 5 points in a game. What are we going to do, finish with 25? As an 8th grader, I saw a little bit there. He really gelled as a sophomore. Even my own son I don't think got his growth spurt until after his sophomore year. And growth spurts at that time in your life, if you grow 4, 5, 6 inches and you got some ball handling skills, that's a good thing.
I really got to appreciate Kvaale for who he was as a coach. He allowed myself and Dylan to do a lot of freelance out there. We had a very intelligent team that knew where the ball needed to go.
I don't know if I had ever had a center that could shoot that well. It was very nice for me to see a bull in a china shop that could shoot. And that's where you can sit on the bench and just, boy, this is fun. Because then he starts hitting, and what happens? They double and triple team him. That gives Adam a shot, or Blake, or Dylan a mid-range, or Travis. Brant down low, you give it to Kurt up high. Brant did a lot of good things down low, a lot of good high-low passing between each other. It was fun to see those guys really develop.
In Mountain Lake, a buzzer beater gave the young Panthers one of their first tastes of winning. That second win was the most exciting part of the year. Losing had become infectious, but winning is contagious. Something changed putting that shilling in the game. Ellsworth's small change led to something that we hadn't experienced in decades. Competing. That's not to say winning would catch on quickly. The next year had a dismal 5-14 record. But in that moment, there was a spark of belief. It's the first time they realized they could do it. Do something great. But there was a giant shadow over the schedule. That one game you look at and you want to skip. Southwest Minnesota Christian. Dum, dum, dum.